Assalamu alaikum, class 6. Hope you're all keeping well and are enjoying your time in Ramadan. So I'm here in front of you today to present an ICT class. This time it is practical and the topic is Microsoft Excel. This is an introductory class and you're just going to be learning about some of the basic features of Excel, how you can use it for mathematical calculations and how you can present some information using Excel. So this is an introductory class and I hope by the end of the lesson you'll be able to understand how you can input information on Excel and how you can use it for maths and how to present some information on there as well. So do practice what I show you in today's lesson. So if you've got access to a computer and Microsoft Excel, do practice what we learned in today's class and inshallah there'll be more in the future. So let's get to Microsoft Excel. Okay, so here we are inside of Excel. Now the key thing to remember when we're using Excel is something called the cell reference. So we'll look at that in a second. So when you open Excel, the first thing you'll notice is the columns which are labeled in alphabets. So A, B, C, D, E. All the different columns are labeled in alphabets. And if we go to the rows, all the different rows are labeled in numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. All the different rows are labeled in numbers. Now this is really important because when we want to put some information inside of Excel, we need to refer to something called the cell reference, which means where in the spreadsheet am I writing right now. So as you can see, there are lots of different rectangles inside of an empty Excel spreadsheet. So when I move my mouse over one of them and click using the left button, then I select a particular rectangle. So where I click, that is the cell reference. So right now I've clicked inside of column B, row 3. So that means I am inside of the cell B3, and we can see it's I've highlighted at the top left hand corner. That is where I'm writing right now. So now I've clicked, I'm inside of column D and I'm inside of row 5. So this cell reference is D5, and we can see that written on the top corner. Right, so that's the cell reference. Now whenever we put some information inside of Excel, we need to know the cell reference, because if we're going to do any mathematical calculations, it's really important that we include those numbers inside of the calculation and include that cell reference inside of the calculation. So we only put one piece of information inside of one cell. Okay, that's the usual case. So what we're going to do in today's class, we're going to make a simple table which is going to show some food items and how much does it cost, and we're going to find out the total, how much did all of that cost together. Now just some basic things. Now in Excel, when we want to do some maths calculations, so the plus sign will remain plus. If I want to do some addition, I will use the plus sign. Now if I want to do if I want to do minus, I will use the minus symbol as well. Okay, so if I want to do any subtraction, I'll use the minus symbol. Now if I want to do some division, I use the slash, this slash. Okay, this slash means I'm going to do some division. And if I want to do some multiplication, then I will use the star button. Okay, so these are the mathematical terms that we use in Excel. If I want to do some multiplication, I will use the star, asterisk. If I want to do some division, I will use this slash, forward slash. Okay, and if I want to do some subtraction, normal minus, and if I want to do some addition, a normal plus. So those are the symbols that we need to keep in mind if we're going to do some addition and subtraction and division and multiplication, etc. Okay, so we're just going to be focusing on addition in today's class, just so that we understand how can we do some basic maths and present some basic information inside of Excel. So as I said, we're going to make a table, and this is going to show how much things cost. So I'm going to give this cell item name, and then here I'm going to put down the next cell. So if I want to go to another cell, just click on the next cell, and I'm going to put down cost price in Taka. Now if you notice here, if I just clicked out, my writing has overflown. It is in cell B, B1, but it's overflowing into C. But if I click on C, Taka is not inside of C. The cell is too small to hold that information, that cost price in Taka. So what I have to do, I need to resize the cell so that it's big enough to fit that writing. So if I move my mouse in between any column or in between any row, you'll notice I'll have a black arrow with two outward pointing arrows. When I have this type of arrow, that means I can resize something. So now I just click using the left button, and now you can see width is written at the top. It's giving me a measurement in pixels and centimeters, I think. So now I can resize the cell as such. So now you can see the pixel count is getting bigger to show that my cell is getting bigger. Same, if I move it to the left, it's going to get smaller. So if I want to resize any cell, I just move my mouse in between any row or in between any column, and when it's a black arrow point with two outward pointing arrows, then I can resize the column or the row. So now I'm moving my mouse in between column 1 and 2. Now you'll notice there's a black arrow with two outward pointing arrows. So now if I click using the left button, I can make it bigger as such. Now you can see the pixel count is getting bigger. I have made my column, my row, much bigger. Okay, so that's how you resize something. Just move your mouse in between the column or the row and drag it to make it bigger. Okay, so I can also use the arrow buttons to move from cell to cell. And if I want to edit any particular information, you click on the cell and then go to the formula bar at the top, and then I can add some extra words or something inside of the cell. So that's the best way to edit that. You go inside of the formula bar to make any changes. So whatever cell that you click on, click inside the cell, and then go click at the formula bar at the top, and then you can put down any symbols or any things that you want to add inside of your cell. Okay, so that's the best way to make some changes. Okay, so let's begin our table. So remember, one piece of information inside of one cell. I can't combine, if I'm going to do any mathematical formulas, I cannot combine any alphabets with numbers. They have to be separate. So I've got to make sure that my name of my item is in one column and the numbers are in another column. So I'm going to put down here fruit, and then I'm going to put in the next column the numbers for how much all the fruits cost. So I'm going to put down, okay, let's put down 380. Okay, so again, I'm going to put some information inside of here. So let's put down some bread. I'm going to put down some fish. Oops. I'm going to put down some chocolates. What else can we say? Some household items. So some milk. So I made a mistake. You can see here in the milk. So I'm going to click at the formula bar, and then I'm going to go and delete that comma. Okay. So I can also use a mouse to go in between different cells. So last one, let's put one more item. Let's put in some meat. Okay, so now I'm going to put in the numbers for how much these things cost. So let's say that we paid 120 for some bread. Let's say it's 500 for fish. Let's say 120 for chocolates. Let's say 160 for milk. Okay, and let's say 580 for meat. Okay, so that's one thing to remember when you're trying to put in some information on Excel and you're going to do some maths. You need to make sure that your numbers are separated from the alphabet. Now, if I want to do I need to do some calculation now. I want to find out how much all of these items cost, right? How much did all of these items cost together? Now, how can we do this on Excel? Now, just remember about basic things. Now, whenever we want to do a calculation on Excel, we need to use the equals button. So I click on an empty cell and I press equals. Now, if you look in the top corner, it says sum, which means I'm going to do a calculation. So if I type the numbers, right, equals to 900 or 8,000 plus 9,000, right? And if I press enter on the keyboard, it will give me the total, right? That will take a long time. If I'm going to do equals to and then I type all these numbers one by one, it's just the same as using a calculator. Okay, so this is where cell references come in handy inside of Excel. So I use equals to. Now if I click on B2, now you can see this cell is selected, which means I'm going to use 380 inside of my calculation, and I can see equals to B2 is on the screen. Now if I use a plus sign and if I click on another item, so I click on the 120, so B5 is selected. So now I'm showing you that I'm going to be adding the numbers inside of B2 and the numbers inside of B5. So if I press enter on the keyboard now, it will give me that total. If I click on the cell, it will tell me what is my calculation. In the formula bar, you can see it says that I used B2 and B5 inside of this calculation. Right, so that's where cell references come in handy. So the same thing, if I want to do any multiplication, so I use B2, I use the asterisk, and I click on another cell. So now you can see B2, and I'm going to multiply that by B6. If I press enter, it will give me the number. So that's where cell references come in handy. right? So I'm going to add everything in this column. I'm going to find out how much it costs altogether by buying the fruit, bread, fish, chocolate, meat, and milk and meat. Okay, so I'm going to find out how much did all of that cost. Now, if I go about writing my cell reference like this, so equals to B2 plus B3 plus B4, right? That will take a very, very long time to calculate. Just imagine, sometimes there might be 50 or things inside of a column. So that will take a long time to type. So the point of Excel is that we can speed up some mathematical calculations. So this is one way that we can add up everything inside of one row or inside of one column. So remember, any formula that I want to do in Excel, any maths I want to do in Excel, I need to start off by writing equals to. So now I'm going to write down sum, S-U-M. Now I'm going to open a bracket. Now I'm going to add everything in column B where the numbers are. So my information starts at B2. So I put equals to B2. Oops. And I put in a colon. And now where does my information end? My last number is being displayed in B7, right? I'm trying to add up everything inside of this column, all these numbers. So B7. So now if you've noticed, now close the bracket. You can see all these numbers are now highlighted, which means I'm going to be adding all of these numbers together. Okay, so if I press enter on the keyboard, now you can see that I have added all of those numbers. If I click on the cell and I look at the formula bar at the top, here we can see equals to sum B2 to B7, which means I've added everything from B2 all the way to B7, which gives me that total. And it works for rows as well. So here I'm going to put some numbers inside of D3 all the way to G3. Okay, so I'm going to put in some numbers here. Okay, so all the way from D3 to G3, I'm going to add up all of these numbers together. So I click on the empty cell where I want to find out the result. So I begin by writing equals. So then I write down equals to sum, and then I put in the bracket. Now my information starts at D3. I can also use my mouse. So if I click on D3 and I put in my colon, but then I click on where does my information end. So I click on G3. So now you can see all those numbers have been highlighted, which means I'm going to be using all of these numbers inside of my calculation. So I close the bracket and I press enter, and now I have the total. So that's how we can add all of the different things together. And if I want to add anything cell by cell, I just do equals to, and then select whatever cells that I want to add. So equals to this cell plus, and then I'll put this one. So I'm going to add these two cells together, and then I just press enter, and there we go. So that's how we do calculations inside of Excel, some basic calculations. So again, I'll show you that way that we added up everything in a row. So remember, all my information starts at B2 in this column. So I'm going to add up everything here: fruit, bread, fish, chocolate, milk, and meat. I'm going to add up everything together. So I begin by writing equals to. So I put in sum, and then I open my bracket. Now my information starts at B2. So I put in a colon, then I close my brackets. Oops, so I've made a mistake there. Where's my information end? My information ends at B7. So B2 all the way to B7, that means I'm going to add up everything which is inside of this highlighted area. So I'm going to press enter on the keyboard, and now that gives me the total of everything inside of there. So I click on the cell, that shows me what calculation was used. So I can see in the formula where it says equals to sum B2 all the way to B7. All of that was added. Okay, so I might want to make our table pretty. So if I want to give a border to my table, I can highlight the cells, and then inside of the home menu, if I click on this arrow over here, I've got all these border options here. I can click outside border, all borders, etc. Okay, so I'm going to put in a nice all borders on there, and then I'm going to make the outside border thicker so that the inside ones are sweet. So, and then I can even do it row by row, give different colors. So I highlight these cells, and if I go to color options here, I can fill them as such, so I can decorate my table in a way. So in the home menu, just use the fill option. You can decorate your table over here. Okay, so just highlight your cells, and then you go to the fill options, and then you can choose your colors. You can decorate your table as such. Okay, and then again, if you want to get your lines, just again in the home menu, if you click onto the border option, then you can see all the different border options on here. So click on all borders, so you want to have lines in between all your cells and such. So if I go into the file print now, you'll see what the table look like if I wanted to print it out. So there you can see, if I just zoom in, that's right. So if I don't put any border options inside of the spreadsheet, then it'll just be plain. So you can see those numbers on the right hand side, there is no border around them. You can see that there's no border around them over here. So that's because I didn't put any border around them, that's why they appear like that. But I did put a border around this piece of information, which is why that is printable. So that's why it's important that you do put borders around things, because if you're going to print it, then it'll be visible, it won't look good. So I'm going to highlight these things now. I'm going to put a border around it, so I'll put a thick border, and I'm going to put in an inside border or border on the inside. Oops, I got rid of the thick border, so thick outside border. So now if I go into file print, and now you can see there is a border around that information. That's why it's important that we do put borders around the information, so that if you do want to print any tables or such, then that will be visible inside of your page. Okay, so again, if I want to decorate the table, just highlight the rows and the columns and use the fill option, and you can decorate it in any way that you want to. Okay, so just highlight the rows or the columns, and you can make and decorate your table in a nice way. Okay guys, so I hope that lesson was handy, and so that's an introduction to Excel. So Excel is mainly a piece of software where you do some numerical calculations, present some information. Our routines are made using Excel. So I hope that serves as a good introduction to using Excel. The key thing to remember is a cell reference, so wherever you're writing, you need to remember where you are. So right now, where I'm clicking right now, I'm inside of the column D, and I'm inside of row 1, so I'm in D1. We need to remember our cell references whenever we're doing any mathematical calculations. So one piece of information inside of one cell. You can't mix numbers and alphabets together, otherwise that will botch up your calculation. Okay guys, so have a practice of that. So make it, go to Excel, make a table, and just do some addition and decorate your table by giving it a border, so highlight the cells that you want to use, and then go to the home menu and then click on the borders that you need. So all inside borders, you might want to give it a thick outside border as well. Then using the fill option, just highlight the particular cells, and then you can give it any sort of background as you wish. Okay guys, so hope you benefit from that class. There'll be more practical classes in the near future, so do have a practice on how to do some basic addition and using the sum formula to add up everything in a row or a column. Okay, take care guys. Assalamu alaikum.